Namaskar. In this episode of Dil Se, we will not be talking about the temple of justice. We'll be talking about the temple of democracy, the parliament. Now, parliament represents the kaleidoscope of the diversity of India. And the concentration of the various hues and colors are represented through the voices of the members of parliament. But since 2010, parliament has undergone changes that perhaps our forefathers never thought of. Our forefathers always felt, and Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar said way back, that parliament makes sure that the executive is accountable to it. Well, the concept of accountability seems to have been lost over the years. And since 2014, unfortunately, Parliament has been functioning as if there is no accountability. So we're going to discuss various issues in respect of the functioning of Parliament and whether at all we need some structural changes to make it more accountable. That is, make the executive more accountable to Parliament. And we have three extraordinary guests with us today. On my right is Manoj Jha, who's a professor. He teaches at Delhi University in the School of Social Work. He was earlier teaching at Jamia. He is a one-time member of Parliament, and I think I can say with honesty that in a sense he is the voice of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha in many ways. My good friend, member of the Congress party, I was his colleague, he was my colleague for many, many years. Manish Tiwari has been twice member in the Lok Sabha. He headed the NSUI, he was the president of the Youth Congress. So he's been in the Congress for 43 years, a long, long time. And hopefully we'll see him again in Lok Sabha in the months to come. And of course, I have Dr. John Brittas, who belongs to the CPM. And he has been in the SFI since 1986. And so he's committed to the cause of the CPM. And he has been an anchor in the past, and he's been following Parliament for many, many years. And now he is in Parliament, in Rajya Sabha, and a voice to be reckoned with. As we have seen the chairman many a times comment on that. So here we are. Let me ask you a fundamental question. Do you think the executive is accountable to Parliament at all today?
When you were saying that kaleidoscope of diversity of India, all the sentences you used in the present tense, I would rather say you should have used past tense. It used to be, it was, क्योंकि जो भी चीजें हमने संसद में आने से पहले सोची थी संसद के बारे में या पढ़ा था, उन सब की तिलांजलि होते हुए हमने बीते 10 वर्षों में खास तौर पर, हालांकि 2010 वाला भी आपका वो लाइन बहुत सही है। क्या होता है कि एग्जीक्यूटिव इज सो ब्रेजेंटली गोइंग बर्सर्क कि मोर ऑफन देन नॉट वी सी द प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर आल्सो।
तो प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर की बात अलग बाद में करेंगे। फिलहाल तो हम कह रहे हैं कि भाई आपको क्या लगता है कि जो हमारे जो सरकार है, हाँ, उसकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी क्या संसद में है या
बिल्कुल नहीं है, शून्य पे मैं मानूंगा। आई विश आई हैड द लैडर बिलो कि शून्य से नीचे कोई हो, क्योंकि मैंने बीते 6-7 वर्षों में जो देखा और अगर 10 वर्षों का देखूं तो एक एक चीज जो एग्जीक्यूटिव की अकाउंटेबिलिटी फिक्स करती थी पार्लियामेंट के अंदर, वो सारी चीजें आई थिंक दे आर बीइंग डिस्कार्डेड, दे आर बीइंग जेटिसन्ड।
गणेश जी,
आपने बात 2010 से शुरू की और वो जो तारीख है वो बहुत ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है, क्योंकि जब मैं संसद में पहली बार आया 2009 में, और वो जो सत्र था 2009 से लेकर 2014 तक, उसमें जो तत्कालीन लोग सरकार में हैं, उस समय विपक्ष में थे, उन्होंने संसद को चलने ही नहीं दिया। 2 या 3 सत्र तो ऐसे थे कि पूरे सत्र ही वाइप आउट हो गए। मुझे याद है नवंबर 2010 का जो शीतकालीन सत्र था, उसके बाद जो अप्रैल 2012 का बजट सत्र था, वो पूरी तरह से
2G के मामले में
2G और उसके बाद और उस 2G में निकला कुछ नहीं आज तक। तो इसलिए और उसके बाद जो घटनाक्रम घटा पिछले 10 वर्ष में, उससे तो एक बात बिल्कुल साफ उभर के आती है कि संसद को एक प्लेटफॉर्म की तरह इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है अपनी बात कहने के लिए। जो जवाबदेही सरकार की होनी चाहिए, जो संसद का एक मुख्य उद्देश्य है, वो तो कहीं बिल्कुल ही समाप्त हो गया। और इसलिए आप चाहे प्रश्नकाल में देख लीजिए, चाहे किसी और बहस में देख लीजिए, जैसे अविश्वास प्रस्ताव की जो बहस थी, जो लोकसभा में अविश्वास प्रस्ताव मणिपुर के मुद्दे पे लाया गया, तो बाकी सभी पार्टियों को तो अपने टाइम अनुसार समय मिला बोलने के लिए। सरकार के जो मंत्री थे वो 3-3 घंटे बोलते रहे। अगर आप कुल मिला के कैलकुलेट करेंगे तो शायद क्या कहते हैं 17-18 घंटे तो सरकार के मंत्री बोले होंगे। तो ये किस तरह की संसद है? ये तो एक प्लेटफॉर्म बन गया है जिससे कि विपक्ष की आवाज दबाई जाए।
I talk about that a little later.
Manish ji is absolutely correct. Kapil ji, see, I feel that even the Prime Minister or the Treasury benches, they won't even say that they are accountable to the Parliament. Because they find it to be little, I would say, weird for them to say that they are accountable to the Parliament. They find it themselves to be above the Parliament. So they don't even consider that actually. And I have been seeing this Parliament from 1988 onwards, more than 3 decades. The Parliament which I used to watch, see, witness 3 decades back, and the Parliament now, it's a pale shadow of the Parliament which I used to report.
You know, I want to raise a somewhat different issue. I understand what you've all said. So there is a government which is the executive, and there are members of Parliament, even of the ruling party, who are not part of the executive, right? Now, when the Parliament was formed, when you said that executive is accountable to the Parliament, it meant that it is accountable both to the members of the opposition who are not in government, as well as members of the ruling party, which are also not in government. That's what accountability means. Accountability doesn't mean accountability only to the opposition, because when a member of Parliament gets elected and he's not in government, he has to look to his constituency and to his people, no?
Exactly. We are accountable to the people.
The structural issue I'm raising, which is a conceptual issue, has any member of the ruling party, and I'm saying since 2010 or 2014, ever asked or criticized the executive that is his party representing the executive?
This is
and
precisely,
no.
Manoj,
Yes.
This is precisely Jawaharlal Nehru used to say, the speaker, please give more time to the opposition, because I want to hear the issues plaguing this nation. I want to know the reality of this nation. And he also said that if my party people talk, they will only praise me.
हाँ, तो ये मैं बात आपके सामने लाना चाहता हूँ कि असली अकाउंटेबिलिटी तभी होगी कि सत्ता पक्ष के लोग जो सत्ता में नहीं हैं, जो मिनिस्टर नहीं हैं, वो सवाल पूछें। वो तो हिंदुस्तान के पार्लियामेंट में एब्सेंट है।
नहीं, देखिए कपिल सर, वो मैंने देखा है, जैसे मैं 1-2 उदाहरण दूं, बोल तो नहीं पाते हैं, लेकिन कुछ मेंबर्स ऐसे जरूर हैं। जैसे मुझे स्मरण है 2-3 डिबेट जिसमें वो सेंट्रल हॉल में आके बताएंगे आपसे कि काश कि हम बोल पाते। तो वो एक क्या है ना कि एक जो अथॉरिटेरियन पॉलिटिक्स का इमरजेंस होता है, तो वो सिर्फ पार्लियामेंट की इमारत को ही पर काबिज नहीं होती है। वो जो उनके अपने पार्लियामेंटेरियन हैं, उनका भी जो स्पेस है, वो बिल्कुल मुझे याद है कि कांग्रेस के रूल में, पर्टिकुलरली नेहरू जी के टाइम में, अगर मैं कहूँ, biggest opposition was from within Congress.
Correct.
मतलब if you remember Feroz Gandhi, he was the most vocal person.
But that is what is called accountability.
Yeah.
इसका एक बहुत बुनियादी कारण सिबल साहब ये भी है कि ये जो एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ लाया गया,
उसी पे हम आएंगे।
देखिए, ये जो एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ था 1985 में जब आप इसको लाए कानून को, उसके उद्देश्य नेक हो सकते थे, पर उसके जो परिणाम हैं वो बहुत नकारात्मक हुए हैं, बिकॉज इट हैज सक्ड डेमोक्रेसी आउट ऑफ द लेजिस्लेटिव इंस्टीट्यूशंस. यू सी, it's an irony that a member of parliament is elected by his constituents, but his parliamentary life is driven by
the party,
by whip driven tyranny.
That's correct.
Of the party.
That's
right. So therefore, जो एक आपका conscience, constituency और common sense है, उसको तो आप बाहर रख के आते हैं जब आप लोकसभा में आते हैं, क्योंकि whip जारी हो जाता है, और एक बारी whip जारी हो गया कि आप उसके खिलाफ हैं या आप उसके हक में हैं, आप उसके बोल ही नहीं सकते.
But Manish ji, even without a whip, the ruling party members would be behaving like this only. In an authoritarian party like BJP, the BJP MPs would be behaving like this only.
Why just, let's not talk just about even the other political parties. This is the problem. I mean, I don't think it BJP, of course,
taken to a
different level altogether. But every political party, ये issue बड़ा एक serious issue है.
देखिए, conviction of courage, ultimately it boils down to conviction of courage. आज आरिफ मोहम्मद खान भारतीय जनता पार्टी में हो सकते हैं, केरल के गवर्नर हैं, पर यही आरिफ मोहम्मद खान जब राजीव गांधी की सरकार में थे,
क्या उन्होंने
शाहबानों वाले मसले के ऊपर एक स्टैंड लिया, और वो स्टैंड बिल्कुल कांग्रेस पार्टी के विपरीत था, और फिर वो सरकार छोड़ के चले गए. दूसरा उदाहरण, जब न्यूक्लियर डील के ऊपर नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन आया और सीपीएम की तरफ से सोमनाथ चैटर्जी को ये हिदायत हुई कि आप अध्यक्ष पद से इस्तीफा दे दो, उन्होंने मना कर दिया. सो इसलिए जो एक कन्विक्शन ऑफ करेज है वो बिल्कुल खत्म हो गया है.
और क्यों खत्म हुआ, इसका कोई जवाब है?
No, there is a pervasive political situation in this country. I feel that, see, though we say that we have a parliamentary democracy, in effect we should introspect whether it is a parliamentary democracy or a electoral autocracy.
मेरा इसमें एक मानना है कि बीते कुछ वर्षों में मैं कहूँ कि ये जो पर्सनालिटी कल्ट, पर्सन ड्रिवन पॉलिटिक्स, जिसमें क्या होता है राजा तेरे सुबह की जय, राजा तेरे शाम की जय, उसकी वजह से भी मैं समझता हूँ ये चीज़ें जो हम देख रहे हैं, क्योंकि खास करके मैं बात करूं,
तेरे नाम पे जय,
हाँ, राजा तेरे नाम पे जय, खास करके अगर मैं प्रेजेंट प्राइम मिनिस्टर को कहूं, इन्होंने अपने भी मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट को इररेलेवेंट बना दिया. एक दौर था, इंदिरा जी के बारे में हमने देखा नहीं, सुना जरूर है कि इंदिरा जी किसी को भी चुनाव जितवा सकती थी. जब वो कल्ट हो जाता है, देन डेमोक्रेसी और डेमोक्रेटिक सिविटास गेट्स रिप्लेस्ड बाय द पर्सनैलिटी, एंड दैट्स डैमेजिंग द आइडिया ऑफ पार्लियामेंट. व्हाट हिरेन मुखर्जी सेड, द पोर्ट्रेट ऑफ पार्लियामेंट एज वी न्यू.
अच्छा, let me ask a question, follow up. This is a freewheeling discussion, so anybody can enter the discussion anytime. A follow up question is कि ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट में हर बुधवार, every Wednesday, the Prime Minister comes and answers questions for 1.5 hours, 12 o'clock onwards. That's every Wednesday for years. Now, and though he has knows the subject matter कि किस पे प्रश्न पूछा जाएगा, लेकिन क्या प्रश्न होगा, और कई बार सब्जेक्ट के अलावा भी प्रश्न हो सकता है और उसको जवाब देना पड़ता है. हिंदुस्तान में पिछले 2014 के बाद कभी ऐसा हुआ कि प्रधानमंत्री जी पार्लियामेंट में आके जवाब दिया किसी?
17th Lok Sabha will go down in the history as the house where the Prime Minister hasn't even answered to a single question.
देखिए साहब, इसमें एक बहुत बुनियादी स्ट्रक्चरल प्रॉब्लम भी है. जो पार्लियामेंट का मूलभूत ढांचा है, इट इज़ गियर्ड विद अ बायस टू द गवर्नमेंट. अब आप, इन्होंने 17th लोकसभा की बात की. 17th लोकसभा will go down in history as possibly the only Lok Sabha where no adjournment motion was admitted.
That's correct.
Right? So therefore, अब आप उसका ढांचा देखिए कि प्रश्नकाल होता है. प्रश्नकाल में आपको मौका मिलता है सरकार को जवाबदार ठहराने का, और उसमें भी अगर प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर का रोल इम्पार्शल ना रहे तो वो एक प्रोपेगेंडा का जरिया बन जाता है. फिर 0 आवर होता है, 0 आवर में अक्सर 0 आवर होता ही नहीं है।
करेक्ट।
और उसके बाद गवर्नमेंट बिजनेस है। तो जो विपक्ष के पास स्पेस होनी चाहिए।
0 आवर की शुरुआत किसने की थी? कांग्रेस पार्टी ने की। कांग्रेस पार्टी ने शुरुआत की थी 0 आवर की 1962 में।
तो मैंने पिछली लोकसभा में एक दिन स्पीकर से बात करते हुए ये बात कही। वो कह रहे थे कि आप लोग क्यों वेल में आ जाते हैं, क्यों हाउस डिस्टर्ब करते हैं। मैं कहा साहब, आप हफ्ते में 3 दिन शाम को 6 बजे के बाद जो सामूहिक विपक्ष है उसके कहने पे एक 193 लगा दिया कीजिए कि and whatever is the corresponding motion in the Lok Sabha. So in that manner, at least 3 days a week, the opposition will be able to express issues.
No, this is the point I was going to make, because in the British Parliament, the structural issue is that every week, there are certain days kept apart for the opposition to raise issues which the treasury benches cannot oppose. This is a structural issue. हमारे संसद में बिजनेस एडवाइजरी कमेटी तय करती है, उसमें मंत्री तय करता है कि किस पे डिस्कशन होगी, किस पे डिस्कशन नहीं होगी, और अगर मंत्री ना कह दे तो डिस्कशन होती ही नहीं। इसका मतलब जो विपक्ष के मुद्दे हैं, द इश्यूज ऑफ द ऑपोजिशन आर नेवर डिस्कस्ड।
आजकल तो एक और विडंबना हो गई है कि व्हेन यू पुट अ क्वेश्चन, राइट, invariably if the question is inconvenient to the government,
disallowed.
It is disallowed on specuous grounds.
That's right.
66 questions of mine on China. Right. 66 questions in September 2020 were disallowed on grounds of national security.
No, but the occupation of China, of India, has not been discussed in Parliament.
Not at all.
Kapil sir, I'll tell you one thing. See, disallowing the questions, the primary reason is that the Parliament Secretariat have been hijacked by the executive. Now there is no independent secretariat. Even during the British regime, Vittalbhai Patel, who was the president of the council, he insisted that the secretariat should be independent. The Crown even agreed to that. Now in its democracy, you don't have an independent secretariat.
एक और भी चीज है, after the cancellation issue of questions, many of my questions were also cancelled on a very frivolous ground, national security, this, that वगैरह। लेकिन एक जो महत्वपूर्ण चीज है जो मैंने अनुभव किया है कि मिसलीडिंग आंसर्स एग्जीक्यूटिव की ओर से आता है, क्वेश्चंस का करेक्ट आंसर नहीं आता है। इफ यू ट्राई टू रेज इट, एवरी टाइम यू से यू हैव अदर इंस्ट्रूमेंट टू फॉलो इट। और लोग उस अकेजन का भी, जो इन्होंने भी कहा, इस्तेमाल करते हैं। आप सवाल पूछो स्पेस पे, वो उसमें कम से कम 108 बार मोदी बोलेंगे, which has no relevance to the
He is absolutely correct. I will tell you
सवाल
one
कोई होता है, जवाब कोई आता है।
Manish ji, even an answer to a star question is an opportunity for the minister to express his loyalty to the prime minister.
That's correct. That's correct.
It has turned to be like that.
this
It's a marketing propaganda.
ऐसा तो
हमने आपके यूपीए में नहीं देखा 2 वर्षों में, उससे पहले नहीं देखा, नेहरू की कैबिनेट में नहीं देखा।
And 20 minutes, 25 minutes, the minister will go on. And Kapil sir, I will tell you one question which was disallowed. I asked a question with regard to the expenditure incurred for the new parliament building. It was disallowed. And the answer which I got, the explanation which I got was that it is under the speaker. This has been implemented by the Public Works Department, sanctioned by the cabinet. So if a member of parliament is unable to get an information with regard to the expenditure, and primarily it is the duty of the parliament to ratify the expenditure of the government.
It's come out of our tax-paid money.
Yes.
मैं आपको बहुत एक इंटरेस्टिंग उदाहरण देता हूँ। तो जब इन्होंने मेरे चीन पे क्वेश्चन डिसअलाउ करने शुरू कर दिए, तो उसका एक बुलेटिन आता है और वो बुलेटिन थोड़ी देर बाद गायब हो जाता है। तो मैंने RTI फाइल की अपने नाम पे। I filed an RTI on my own name that please tell me how many of my questions were disallowed. The RTI was refused. So he is absolutely correct. The autonomy of the parliamentary secretariat has been completely subverted.
Right.
And therefore...
So then what is this institution for? Ultimately, we have to fundamentally ask the question, is parliamentary democracy and the institution of parliament working for democracy? Or is it subverting democracy? It's a fundamental question we have to ask
See,
ourselves.
the most important thing is that,
Sir,
Manoj sir, all the avenues, question hour, second, short duration discussion, call attention motion, adjournment motion.
Your viewers will not
Everything
know,
has been...
John, your viewers will not know what is a short duration discussion is. Please.
Short duration is obviously, and a member can bring up one important issue on which we require
Price
discussion.
rise.
Price rise, unemployment,
Floods,
Manipur.
they're not allowed.
When the government disallowed short duration discussion on unemployment, rural distress, or Manipur, they brought in a discussion on white paper and Ayodhya.
There it is. That tells you how Parliament is functioning.
देखिए साहब, बुनियादी तौर पे तो पहले ये जो 10th शेड्यूल है, इसको आपको रिविजिट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि देखिए अब मेरे को याद है 1985 से पहले हम लोग पढ़ा करते थे, मैं उस टाइम पे कॉलेज में था, कि सरकार के जो मंत्री थे, सरकार के मंत्रियों को किसी भी कानून के ऊपर या किसी भी विधेयक के ऊपर अपनी पार्टी में भी आम सहमति बनाने की ज़रूरत पड़ती थी, राइट। अब तो ये जब से एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ आया है, डिफेक्शन तो रुकी नहीं, पर जो सांसद हैं या जो विधायक हैं वो बंधुआ मजदूर बन गए हैं।
नहीं, नॉट ओनली दैट, इसका दुरुपयोग हो रहा है, क्योंकि स्प्लिट हैज गॉन, देयर इज नो कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ स्प्लिट नाउ अंडर द 10th शेड्यूल, और मर्जर इज द ओनली डिफेंस. But what they do is they buy off people. They just buy off people, topple governments, and their own speaker then doesn't decide matters, and matters linger on, और Supreme Court भी नहीं decide करती और 5 साल निकल जाते हैं. तो उसका फायदा क्या है? You are absolutely right. If 10th schedule scrap होना चाहिए, except, and we come back to the issue that you raised, Manish. अगर आपकी इंडिपेंडेंस खत्म हो जाएगी, मॉरल फाइबर खत्म हो जाएगा, तो आप कभी बिक सकते हो, और बिक रहे हैं लोग. तो आप 10th शेड्यूल हटा भी दोगे.
देखिए साहब, इसमें
तो होगा क्या?
नहीं, इसमें साहब आपको थोड़ा सा,
वो तो मास आराम गैराम होंगे.
आपको थोड़ा सा जो सर्च लाइट है वो अपने ऊपर भी फोकस करने की ज़रूरत है. ये आज से नहीं, पिछले 3 दशक से 4 दशक से जो सांसदों का और विधायकों का आचरण रहा है हाउस के अंदर, उसने भी इन इंस्टीट्यूशंस को इरेलेवेंट बना दिया है. अब अगर आप एक दूसरे के ऊपर माइक फेंकेंगे, चप्पल फेंकेंगे, राइट, सो जो लोग हैं जो आपको चुन के भेजते हैं वो आपके बारे में क्या सोचेंगे? भाई, उस दिन मेरे को एक दिन राष्ट्रपति भवन में एक मंत्री मिल गए सरकार के, जो मेरे को कह रहे थे कि हमने वो सिब्बल साहब की बहस सुनी, महाराष्ट्र के मैटर में आजकल लाइव स्ट्रीम होती है. मैं तो 8 घंटे उनकी बहस सुनता रहा. तो मैंने कहा कि तो आपको कैसा लगा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट किस तरह फंक्शन करता है? नहीं, बहुत बढ़िया है. और मैं कहा, अगर कोई पार्लियामेंट देखे कि जिसमें रोज़ क्या कहते हैं डिसरप्शन होती है और स्लोगन शाउटिंग होती है, उस इंस्टीट्यूशन के बारे में आप क्या सोचेंगे? बोला, मैंने ऐसा तो कभी सोचा ही नहीं था. सो इसलिए इस चीज़ को भी हमको अपने संज्ञान में लेना चाहिए कि हमारा जो आचरण है उसने कितना इन लेजिस्लेटिव इंस्टीट्यूशंस को.
He spoke for 8 hours in the Supreme Court. He spoke for 5 hours in Lok Sabha on that impeachment in 1993. At that time, there was a discourse, there was a debate, there was a possibility of a debate. And one more thing, Sibal Saab, see, earlier the norm was to protect the ordinary member. Now the norm is to protect the minister at the cost of the ordinary member. And unless I yield, nobody is supposed to interrupt me or intervene. Now, ministers are empowered, entitled to interrupt anybody at any time. And whereas we are not supposed to reply to the
switch off your mic.
And new parliament, I will tell you one thing. I don't know whether it is a parliament or a
marriage hall, banquet hall.
What is that actually?
Banquet hall.
7-star banquet.
Yeah, 7-star.
And the interesting thing is that without mic, you cannot speak there.
I know that.
And mic is regulated and controlled in such a way that, see, opposition is completely contained.
Not only the mic, even the cameras.
Yes,
so,
even the
cameras. So therefore, You know, the Sunset
The focus
TV
is always on the minister and the treasury
the
benches.
Sunset TV was supposed to be an autonomous institution, and it is supposed to truly reflect the proceedings on the floor of the House.
Correct.
That never happens.
That never happens.
You know, the cameras are focused in a particular manner in order to completely deny space to the opposition.
But coming back to your point of the 10th schedule, मैं एक सुझाव देना चाहता हूँ कि एक कानून ऐसा पारित होना चाहिए कि कोई भी मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट जिस पार्टी से वो इलेक्ट होता है, अगर वो पार्टी छोड़ के किसी और पार्टी में चला जाए, then he should not be allowed to hold a public office, not fight elections for the next 5 years. No public office, no elections for the next 5 years. If you leave your party in the middle, right? At the end of the term, at the end of your 5 term, you can leave your party, but not during your 5-year term. If this is done, all this 10th schedule need not be there at all.
ये आपकी बात सही है। किसी बुनियादी बात तो ये है कि आया राम गया राम रोकना है। आया राम गया राम रोकने की जगह ये 10th शेड्यूल ने, जैसे मैंने पहले कहा, कि जो लोकतंत्र है वो लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाओं से बिल्कुल खींच लिया है, और इसलिए इस 10th शेड्यूल को तो जाना ही चाहिए।
Now there is a provision in the constitution which says कि अगर आपकी टर्म खत्म हो रही है और आप दूसरी पार्टी ज्वाइन करना चाहते हो और इलेक्शन अभी नज़दीक है, राइट, सपोजिंग अप्रैल में इलेक्शन हो, मार्च में आप इस्तीफा दे दो, आपने डिफेक्ट कर लिया, गवर्नमेंट टॉपल कर दी, 10-15 लोगों ने इस्तीफा दे के गवर्नमेंट टॉपल हो गई, और इलेक्शन होगा तो वोट पे टिकट आपको मिल जाएगा और दोबारा इलेक्ट होके आ जाओगे। सो आपने डिफेक्ट करके दूसरी सरकार को टॉपल कर दिया और फिर आप संसद में आ गए। ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजन है।
I have a slightly different view on this. I feel that there's no dearth of rules and laws in this country. The political culture has changed. Even if we, bring in new rules or norms, this is going to be like that.
No, but if you say you can't hold public office and can't fight an election, there's no question. Nobody will do it.
But who is going to adjudicate, sir? Now the speakers.
No, if it's a parliament, if it's a constitutional provision, that's all. All you need is an amendment.
देखिए, whether you like it or not, the death of ideology is a reality. So therefore, that ideological dispositions which used to govern or underwrite our political structure have gone over a period of time. So therefore, you would require some constitutional, instrumentality in order to keep the democratic institutions
Uttarakhand
alive.
government was toppled in this fashion. Maharashtra government recently toppled in this fashion. Madhya Pradesh government toppled in this fashion. Arunachal government toppled in this fashion. Karnataka government toppled in this fashion. Which government has not been toppled in this fashion? Where people elected one government and then ex-mass Ayaram Gayaram toppled it, and the speakers upheld, didn't adjudicate on it, and Supreme Court didn't do a thing about it. Goa toppled like
That's what I'm telling you. See, if a judge has got an integrity, just as in the case of Uttarakhand, Justice K.M. Joseph, see, he gave a verdict which was absolutely against that.
We're discussing parliament.
No, okay. What I am trying to say, Sibal Saab, see, if institutions like parliament weaken, there is no purpose for this parliament democracy.
Sir,
there is another related question. Can you resign from the bench one day and join a political party the next day?
We are not discussing the judiciary. That requires a separate 1-hour discussion.
We shouldn't embarrass him.
मेरा एक मानना है कपिल जी कि ये जो कुछ भी हो रहा है, look, I think most of the articles which have been written on parliament and the functioning of parliament in last 10 years. So there must be something fundamentally wrong. क्योंकि मैं एक दिन कंटेंट एनालिसिस कर रहा था, सबसे ज्यादा आर्टिकल मैंने खुद 7-8 लिखे, 14 से 24 की
मैंने भी कही।
हाँ, तो इससे एक आपको पता चलता है कि कहीं ना कहीं देयर इज सीरियस एलिमेंट। तो मैं इस मामले में ब्रिटास की बात से हमारे पॉलिटिकल कल्चर में भी एक चीज घर कर गई है और वो इतनी परवेट कर चुकी है अंदर तक। आई थिंक ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन अगर पॉसिबल होगा लोकतंत्र के लिए तो शायद वो, मेरा मानना है, मास करेगी। मैं मनीष जी की बात से ये नहीं मानता हूं कि एंड ऑफ आइडियोलॉजी हो गया है, मतलब देयर मस्ट बी सम काइंड ऑफ रोड ब्लॉक with this kind of understanding. But the fact is,
the one politician who stands out, I have to say, is Lalu Prasad Yadav. He has all his life opposed the BJP, never compromised, right? And despite the fact that he's been in jail for...
I mean, he's been in jail. He has lost last 20 important years of his life fighting
but
cases.
he's never compromised.
But even
So
in
there
Gandhi,
is, ideology is still alive in some parties, I have to say. CPM is ideologically committed. Congress is ideologically committed. It is still. I mean, it's talks of the idea of India. So to that extent, it is ideologically
We fought
committed.
the Congress and we supported them to keep BJP away.
So I think, but individual character.
Yeah. Coming back to the Parliament, Sibal Saab, I need to, say a couple of things more, if it is okay. Just see the functioning of the parliamentary standing committees. All of a sudden, see the quality of the proceedings of the parliamentary standing committees
Terrible.
become terrible. And I will tell you one thing, earlier being a student of political science, the law should be made like gold processing. You should process it. General debate, clause by clause, referring to the committees, perusal by the committees, stakeholders should be brought in. Now, how is a law being passed now? That's why Justice Ramana said that it's like making dosha.
No, but you see, there's another thing which has been done, which is actually very, very dangerous, and unfortunately it has not been taken up by members of parliament. Before any report is finally circulated to members of the standing committee, it has to be cleared by the presiding officer of that house whose committee it is. This never used to happen. This is absolutely, was never the practice. Once a committee decided that and a draft report was prepared, circulated, you could dissent. In the case of the data protection bill, we concluded deliberations, I think in the December of 2020, right, at the height of COVID, when there were no vaccines. We sat from the July to the December of 2020, and then for 6 months there was no report. And when I started asking, they said that the report has to be cleared by the presiding officer.
No, but that's a new sort of way of doing things which have not seen.
After that, they brought a new law, a new draft, and it was not referred to the IT standing committee to which I am a member. And without even referring this draft bill, the committee sumo moto gave a report without even perusing the clauses.
Only 16% of the bills were referred to the standing committee, right? And this is lesser than three previous Lok Sabhas. That's the state. And it's the Congress party in 1993 which introduced the concept of the standing committee. Now the standing committee is controlled by whoever chairs it, and government clears everything. And there is no debate. I tell you, on some of these new criminal laws, I suggested that several really leading lawyers who are conversant with concepts of liberty under the Constitution should be called. They never called.
Sibal Saab, can you spell the name of these three criminal laws?
I can.
I'm seriously telling you. I have been asking this question in the South. I'm coming from Kerala. Not even a single lawyer or even a judge is in a position to, spell it rightly.
So, to you, when you said chairman of the standing committee, sorry, there also the government, the chairman could be, he's a total head.
Correct. You're right.
His only job is to prepare tour plan, nothing else.
So, इसलिए sir, the whole structure will have to be reimagined, so that enough space is available, and rule-based space is available to the opposition, which cannot be trampled and trifled upon. If this institution has to perform any worthwhile
But what's
function.
the point of an institution where you introduce the bill without circulating the bill? You tell me. You introduce the bill without circulating the bill. ठीक है ना? और कहते हो कि अभी बहस करो और अभी इसको पारित करो.
I can tell you two bills I remember which were passed in 3.5 minutes.
That's right.
Not only that, not only.
अरे जम्मू कश्मीर.
Jammu Kashmir. And which has got far-reaching consequences for coming generations.
Not only that, आप 2 बजे रेजोल्यूशन लेके आते हैं किसी मेंबर को हाउस से एक्सपेल करने का, और 2:30 बजे उसको एक्सपेल कर देते हैं.
Correct. Absolutely.
Sir,
And I'll tell you, suspension of these members, I'll tell you, for the first time, see, the rule says that any member can be suspended for the remainder of the session. But all of a sudden, something is being brought in. You can be suspended for 3 months.
And your matter is taken to
I was
privilege
suspended for
committee.
3 months.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah, you know that I
No,
came
no.
to also.
Yeah,
Sanjay has not been allowed to take oath.
I know. So this is a very shocking state of affairs.
The rule of the Rajya Sabha specifically says that only for the remainder of the session.
Procedures are not followed. If the opposition is not allowed to speak, if the cameras are not focused, if the mics are closed, and if the treasury benches decide on what the subject matter of the discussion is going to be, the opposition never gets a chance. If the opposition wants to discuss an issue, the presiding officer says no, and the presiding officer openly represents the opposition, reprimands the opposition member when he makes a fair point. What is left in Parliament?
देखिए साहब, आपको even the institution of the presiding officer will have to be rethought. Okay? Like in England, in the House of Commons, there's a tradition that the outgoing speaker is re-elected without anybody contesting against him, and that's the kind of insulation which is provided for his continuance in order to ensure impartiality when he's functioning as the presiding officer. But in our case, I think perhaps the time has come to pierce the separation of powers between the judiciary and the legislature and really think in terms of getting sitting Supreme Court judges to actually serve for 5 or 6 years as presiding officers, because it's iffy.
Very controversial.
No, I know.
Judges.
Right. Sir, these days confidence is relative. It's in degrees. So what I'm trying to say is that this is just an idea that I'm putting on the table. There may be many other much better ideas, but the question is, how do you ensure the impartiality of the functioning of the proceedings?
Pehli baat, Manish ji, every presiding officer must resign from the party he comes from.
Agree.
Sabse pehli baat.
Agree.
He should not be associated with the party to which he belonged, right? This is fundamental.
There was a controversy over Somnath Chatterjee thing, no? It was with regard to my party, actually. But Somnath made a very interesting statement, Somnath Chatterjee. He said that though I am politically, glued to one party, but when I sit on this chair, somehow the neutrality descends.
No, but the point is there are not enough Somnath Chatterjees in this country.
If you look, read the.
But sir, आप अगर वो इस्तीफा भी दे दे अपनी पार्टी से, sorry to interrupt you, sir. अगर इस्तीफा भी दे दे, अगर कल को उसी पार्टी से उसको दोबारा जीत के आना है,
no, he will not only get one term. This is the problem. इस्तीफा देना, एक ही term मिलेगी और उसके बाद कोई public office नहीं मिलेगा. सीधी बात. See, unless we set these systems in place, nothing is going to change.
कुछ ये चीजें करनी इसलिए भी होंगी क्योंकि मैं फर्स्ट सेकंड लोकसभा की प्रोसीडिंग्स देखता हूँ, मावलंकर हो या इधर सर्वपल्ली राधाकृष्णन हो. इफ यू रीड और लुक एट देयर स्टेटमेंट्स, बायस इज नॉट देयर.
No, it's never.
एक पैसे का पूर्वाग्रह नहीं. जबकि नेशन बिल्डिंग का एक्सरसाइज हो रहा था, नेहरू वाज अनमैच्ड हीरो, लेकिन कहीं भी नहीं. वो मैंने मावलंकर साहब में भी देखा, सर्वपल्ली राधाकृष्णन में. एक मेरे जहन में ख्याल आया अभी, जैसे लोकसभा में एक स्पीकर होता है, जो आपने कहा मैं उससे अग्री करता हूँ, रिजाइन करता है. मुझको लगता है कि वाइस प्रेसिडेंट को राज्यसभा इस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से मुक्त कर दी.
बिल्कुल मैं आपकी बात से बिल्कुल इत्तेफाक.
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो आप.
आप यहाँ भी चुने एक व्यक्ति को जो चलाए और उसी लाइन पे चलाए जिसका इशारा आपने किया कि पार्टी एफिलिएशन उसकी खत्म,
और उसका दोबारा ही कैन नॉट स्टैंड फॉर दैट पोस्ट अगेन. सीधे वो बहुत ज़रूरी है कि थोड़ी अमाउंट ऑफ न्यूट्रलिटी फिर आएगी ना. बट यहाँ तो सिस्टम इज हाईजैक्ड. द एग्जीक्यूटिव हैज हाईजैक्ड पार्लियामेंट. दिस इज द हार्ट ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम.
आप हाईजैक के साथ रिग्ड भी कर लीजिए.
No,
रिग्ड एंड देन हाईजैक.
Manoj ji, one more important thing which I feel is that, see, Parliament as an institution cannot, have that integrity unless other institutions also, support it, like judiciary, like media. I can tell you one example. Earlier, I'm talking about late 80s and 90s. The media used to, publish investigative reports, and these reports was the basic premise on which the parliamentary proceedings would be there. There was a jugalbandi between the media and the
There is still a jugalbandi.
now it is the opposite. Now it is just the opposite. Now the investigative stories in media is the interview of a minister. Then you get all that.
जैसे एक अभी मुझे घटना याद आई कि कैसे डिके हुआ 77 में। अभी मैं रामविलास जी पे एक बायोग्राफी आ रही है शोभना नायर की, तो उसको मैं पढ़ रहा था। बेलची कांड पे रामविलास पासवान एज फर्स्ट टाइम MP ही एक्सपोज्ड हिज ओन गवर्नमेंट। मतलब उन्होंने चरण सिंह एज ए होम मिनिस्टर को जितना एक्सपोज किया, अपोजिशन उतना नहीं किया जितना खुद फ्रॉम विद इन। तो मैं समझता हूँ एक वो ओवरऑल पॉलिटिकल कल्चर की भी है, पूरा इकोसिस्टम।
साहब दूसरा क्या कहते हैं, खौफ नहीं था। हाँ। अगर आप अपनी सरकार के खिलाफ बोलोगे, ये नहीं है कि
ईडी पहुंच जाएगी,
कल को आपको बाहर निकाल दिया जाएगा,
ईडी पहुंच जाएगी।
अरे इन लोकसभा a minister had the audacity to say that if you are speaking like this, ED will come.
अब देख लो ना सतपाल के केस में हुआ क्या है, सतपाल जी के केस में हुआ क्या है।
So it's they themselves say that. That's very important.
So therefore, I mean, I think that we've had a very, very exciting discussion, if you ask me.
One small thing.
Please.
The lexicons have changed. Earlier, when you used to, purchase MPs and MLAs, the newspapers used to write, editorials. Shame. Now, master strategy.
Operation Lotus.
Operation Lotus.
It has been a master strategy to dilute whatever Parliament represented. It's a master strategy to make Parliament irrelevant. And it is a master strategy to perpetuate yourself for years to come. And I think that will be the death knell of democracy in India. Thank you very much for being with me. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।